All right, everyone, welcome back. It's week 5, day 3, right? Technically day 3, even though we didn't have a day 2 video. We had a guest lecturer, and day 4 we'll also have a guest lecturer. So this is going to be your last video of the week, and it's part 1. We're just getting started this morning. So what we're going to be looking at this morning is we're going to be adapting our existing app that we've been working on, the Twitter app, clone app. Now, it's not exactly a one-to-one Twitter clone, obviously, but what we're going to be doing is adding the ability to have a private tweet and make it so that you don't see other people's private tweets, but you can see your own. And if we do have some time, which I think we will, if we have some time, something I would like to do is add in the ability to have like following. Like I could follow somebody or I could like their tweets. Like there's still those two things that I think that show up on a lot of people's final projects, like the social aspect of it, that I want to make sure that we cover. And mostly we're just covering model relationships here so that I could have a user become a friend to another user. And those are, that's an interesting relationship there. So there's that, there's likes, and then there's filtering down. If we can cover all the 3 of those things today, great. If not, we'll just cover it early next week as we transition from back end to front end. Okay?
Can you upload this to GitHub so I can have all of this stuff?
Yeah. I should start making commits then. Let me go ahead and ignore a couple of files. And I think that's really all we need. I know. We also need to ignore start.pyc and pycache. All right, cool. All right, so we've got that stored into a commit, and this next commit is going to include all of the private tweet stuff, and then I'll just commit as I make each feature, like how to like a tweet, how to follow another user, those kinds of things. I feel like there's a lot left to cover here.
Can you throw the base up on there right now, then, so I can clone it?
Oh, you want to pull it down?
Yeah.
Sure. There you go. Should just be able to pull that down, run the migrations, and then run the server. Should be fine.
So how should I go about doing this actually?
Cloning a project?
Right.
Okay. So the way that you clone a project, pull it down, get it to work, is you go to Twitter clone. You see this green button here? And we're going to copy that URL. Now you're going to want to make sure that you use HTTPS. It's probably HTTPS by default because you can't use SSH unless you've got something paired, your SSH key paired to this account, which you don't. So we're going to type git clone, and you paste in that URL. So that copies that down to your computer into a directory called Twitter clone. When you cd into it, now you need to do the whole direm thing. So we need to open up our text editor for envrc.
What was that?
.envrc for direm. So we're going to open up an envrc and we're going to say layout Python. I mean, you guys have been doing this for every project, so save it and quit it out. And then we do the direm allow business on it.
How do I save it? I just control C.
What do you mean? Did you open up Vim or did you open up? Don't ever open up Vim. I meant into your text editor like Atom or something. It's okay. You can save it by typing escape. Wait, so did you type in layout Python 3? Okay, hit escape and then :WQ.
That just brought me like a sub.
All right, so
that where does that when you clone it, where is that actually putting? Because like we already have Durham set up for assignments and notes, so anything we put under there is already using Durham. So this is.
oh, so is that why this is like seems really new?
Yeah.
Okay, you should have been doing this for every project. This should have been in. I mean, I noticed that they weren't in the assignments that you pushed up. I guess I didn't really question why that wasn't in there, but yeah, every project. I said this like really early on that every project has its own virtual environment. So notice that.
I thought you said once we did it, it was going to do that for notes and assignments. So we wouldn't have.
See, I said that for notes, but I didn't say that for assignments. Notice how I don't have anything going on in assignments here, but it's fine for it to be in notes because that's just, we can have that in there. But it's all right. If that's what it is, that's what it is. So if you clone down Twitter clone into your assignments directory, then it should be fine. Or if you clone it down into your notes directory, it should be fine. Then you shouldn't have to do any of this. But I cloned mine down into my home directory. So I guess it's not too bad for this to show up here.
How would you change where it belongs to?
You just change the directory you're in when you clone it. So I was in my home directory
Oh, gotcha.
when I ran the git clone command, and it cloned it to to Twitter clone directory. So you see how it's like tilde/. It's like user/Twitter clone. So no matter what directory you're in, it will create a subdirectory called Twitter clone. And if a directory already exists with that name, which it's likely to happen eventually, it won't clone into it. It'll say that already exists and there's something in there.
Maybe not right now, but maybe sometime we could quickly go over setting up that Durham again.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's something we should feel really comfortable doing. So we can do that more often. Maybe we just start adding that into what we do daily. Okay, yeah. So you've got Twitter clone here, and since I wasn't really prepared for having this be installed elsewhere, after you have Durham activated, you then pip install Django. So what directory did you clone your Twitter clone directory?
Mine's under notes.
Yours is under notes. Oh, so it probably already said that Django is already installed. But does it say like successfully installed here?
It's installing, I guess.
Okay, probably because we made a new virtual environment. So like since this virtual environment was under, it was more specific. So it's going to use Durham is going to use the more specific project one, even if it is in a subdirectory of another virtual environment
So
that's
we
being
should
managed.
be setting up virtual environment down in Django for every project then.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's fine if you haven't, but
What's the like appeal of doing that versus putting it as large directory?
each project has its own sort of project dependencies. So you don't have to worry about projects depending on other projects' dependencies because each project is going to be its own special flower, pretty much. Um, so, and that makes more sense like as projects get older. So like if you're working on something on today, and then you use the same environment as something like 8 months from now, or like a year and a half from now, and you install Django, those are going to use two different versions of Django. Or you're going to want them to use two different versions of Django is what I mean to say. Um, whereas you're going to have a much older version of Django installed on that older project. All right, so is that all done? Okay, so now we're also going to pip install Django REST framework, all one word. And then we're going to install, so let me know when that gets done installing for you. It should be cached, so it should be pretty quick.
Yes.
Okay. We're also going to pip install this new library called Joser, DJosser. It's what?
It's done.
It's already installed Joser? Okay. So yeah, you should be fine then. You should be able to run Python manage py migrate, Python manage py run server. Cool, that works. You see that when you go to /tweets. All right. So yeah, so that has everything it needs to work now. I'm going to not work there though. All right, so the first thing I want to add to this project is the ability that a tweet can be private. And that's just going to be a Boolean field. It's just a Bool field that says true or false. And we're going to default it to false. That way, whenever I make a new tweet, if I don't say that it's going to be private or not, it's just going to have a default value that is applied to it. So that way I can put it in the serializer, and if I don't send it over, the serializer doesn't freak out saying it's required. So let's go ahead and add this field to the model first, because I like to work from the database up. So I'm going to add a new field called private, which is going to be a Boolean field, the default of false. So any new tweet that comes in will be created as public, unless they specifically say that the private is going to be true. All right, so we've changed the database model. Now what do we need to do? We need to make the migration first. So let's say we're going to Python manage py make migrations. And then we're going to migrate. I'm going to run my server here in another tab just to see if everything's worked. So I just want to see all the tweets in my database. Notice that it's not showing me if they're private or not. That's an interesting question, though, like in terms of like application design. Do you think we want to show the clients, or do we want to reveal if it's private or not? Like, does it really matter for us to show if it's private or not private? I mean, think about that from a user standpoint of the app.
Well, the owner of the tweets would want to see because they want to be able to talk about it.
They'd want to be able to see like their own if they're private or not.
It really matters to other people looking at them. Honestly, if they were private, they wouldn't be able to see them. So.
Mm-hmm.
See, if you look at it in the browser, it gives you a tick box for private.
You mean like if you go here?
I mean, in admin, if you go and open it up.
Oh yeah, an admin. Right, that's what I would expect it to look like there. But remember what I said about the admin the other day, is that it's only for you, is that it's in no way considered part of your application. Like the admin is really just sort of a cheat code for your app. So, but here we can get away. I mean, we can show private or not here. Like, that's fine. And if you wanted to show private or public here, where would you add that? In the serializer, right? So let's go to our serializer. Now, something that's also worth mentioning here is that in fields, like your model can tend to get really large. Like ours is even starting to get a little annoying. Like I can add private there, but if we wanted to show all of our fields, there's a little shortcut hack that you can do where you can erase the entire list, and you can just do dunder all. And that will say, I want to show all fields to the front end, to the client.
And then you can still make read-only fields. So like private, we probably want as a read-only field.
Private as a read-only field? For now.
Well,
because we're going to want users to be able to set their own as private. So let's probably leave that off there. Now private is false is showing up for all of them. Now the reason why I think that this is kind of an interesting field is that if something is private true, we're probably not going to see it. You know what I mean? It's like if it's another user's tweet and they've marked it as true for private, then we're not even going to see it. We're only going to see private true for our own tweets. So, but we should, and notice that there's here too, since that is a field that we can edit when we create a new one.
well, that's kind of what I was thinking. Like, I mean, the owner will need to see if it's private or not. Right? We don't really need to show it to everybody.
Right. Well, it can't. I mean, so the reason why I'm not too hung up on this is because we can show all people if it's private or false. That's fine. But from a functionality standpoint, we're only really going to see private true if it's our own tweet. Like that's like we're not going to see, like it would be a complete breakdown of security if I saw another user's tweet was private true. Which let's go ahead and let's update that. So let's say that tweets 1. Oh wait, I didn't code in the update functionality for here, so we're gonna have to go to admin and do that there. So go to your admin and let's mark all 3 of them as private. How about that? Let's say all 3 of these are private. Okay, so all of the tweets that are in there are marked as private. So now when we look at it, and I'm only really going to be working in Postman because the browser can be kind of a pain in the butt to work with. So I'm in Postman now. Notice that all of the private true are showing up. And this one right here is kind of a breakdown of functionality. This one right here is a breakdown. Because I believe I've got user 2 right now. And if you're not sure, I don't really know if anybody will remember this, but if you're not sure your username given a token ID, how can you find out details of your user? There's a URL that you can access through Joser. auth/me, right? You could do a get to auth/me, and we are user ID of 2. Perfect.
I didn't have either authorization on it.
What's that?
I said I don't have either authorization turned on, and I can see all of them.
Interesting, yeah. So if I have, that's another one too. So if I have no authorization token, I shouldn't see any of them. If they're all private, I shouldn't see anything. I should only see the ones that are private faults.
I've got 2 tokens in here, and one of them said authentication credentials not provided, and the other one says invalid. I select that one. I think it like expired.
Probably not. I don't think it expired.
They were working before.
That's the story of program. It's working yesterday.
It was working before.
Okay, so one of them is checked. Oh, well, notice that the value is different. This is token and the token, and this one just has the value there. So
Right.
It came out there.
invalid token. All right, so go to auth token create and do a post with your username and password. So go to post and unclick the authorization header. There you go. The body, username and password. Okay, run that. There's your new token. So yeah, so that was something to address as well, is that if you don't have this authorization token, you can always get a new one by going to /auth/token/create and doing a post to that endpoint with your username and your password in the body, or in the body of the request. So I can say username is Joel, and my password is SafePass. So that'll give me back this token here. So that's what I'm taking this token. I'm putting it on my header right there. So that's where I've got that from. That's essentially a login step. If you want to log out, if you want to invalidate that token, you just do a post to auth token destroy. Whoops. You need to have your authorization header on for that. All right, that destroyed it. Now when I do a create, I'm going to turn it off here. Here I have a new authentication token. I can now go and see my auth/me information. There's my information to do a GET request there. So where I want to take this is I want to, one, if I'm not logged in, to not show anybody's private tweets, and if I am logged in, to only show my private tweets in with the query set. Okay. So this is going to require some weird filtering. Like, when we haven't really covered filter, which is kind of a shame that we've gotten this far without covering filtering, but we will absolutely cover it today. So the first thing I want to do is, we're not going to cover the not logged in part here. We're just going to cover the I'm logged in and I only want to see my private tweets, but I want to see public tweets of everybody else. So we need to code into our view some logic to handle that. So we have our tweet list create API view. This is the method, or this is the class that we're going to be working within. And we're going to be, right now, our query set just says get all of the tweets. Like that's what it says right there. So just get all of them. Query set is going to be sort of the results. That's like the database query. That's going to be ran to populate what we see in the REST endpoint. So when we want to list them, it's saying we want to list all of the tweets. Well, that's not really the case from what we want today. We want a filtered down version of those results. So we're going to make a new method here, and it's pretty much just going to override this query set here. We're going to call it get query set. And I need to, let's see here. There we go. I wasn't sure of the method signature. Just took self though. Perfect. All right, so for me to just replace this with exactly what it was before is to say I want to get query set to return tweet.objects.all. When you have that, you can erase your query set line up there. Now, the reason I'm doing this is not just to be pedantic and move something to a method. It's that you can't access anything off of the request when your query set is up here. Like when query set is just sort of floating up here in what I like to call the gray matter of the class, like it's not inside of a method or anything, you can't access anything off of the request. And the most important thing we want to get from the request is who's currently logged in. Sorry, the phone's just acting up. So because we can't access anything from the request here, means that we need to put it inside of a method. Now get query set, we absolutely can get things off of the request like the logged in user. If we can get the logged in user, then we can see who they are, we can get tweets based on them. We do all sorts of awesome stuff. So with get query set defined down here, now I can delete this and our app will still work the exact same. So when I go to Postman and I say I want to get all the tweets, it will just work the same. Now if I just say get query set returns, now don't type this along with me, but if I say get query set returns an empty list, now get query set returns an empty list. So you can really have full control over what comes back from this endpoint by messing with get query set. So what I want to do though is I want to filter it down. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to filter down, let's say, how do I want to go about this? Because we can directly go after it, but since it's kind of a complex filter, like I want to filter by two things. I want to filter by, I want all results that I'm the owner of. I want all public results that I'm not the owner of. Okay, so getting to all of the results that I'm the owner of, that should be pretty easy because, well, not easy, but that should be pretty straightforward because we can do that in one call. The other one kind of contradicts it though. This kind of says like, you know, we want one thing or we want another. So we can't exactly just put that into one request. I can't say one request, I want all the ones I'm the owner of, and I say the ones that I'm not an owner of, I want these. So what we're going to do is we're just going to filter it down first off by changing the all to a filter. And that's how you are able to define your lookup parameters. So remember in SQL when you did like a where, said I want to select these fields where my name was Joel. What we could do here is we can say I want to filter where my author is equal to self.request.user. So this is not going to be exactly what we want, but it's the first step. So notice now that we only see these results where I am the creator. Unfortunately, though, well, it kind of did the right thing, but unfortunately, it was not the right thing. Let me go to this admin one as marked as not private, because now we can see that the other side of it still isn't working. I have a public tweet from another user that we're not seeing. So I see these two that I have marked as private. Doesn't matter though because I see all of the ones that I created. And then I have a public tweet from another user that I can't see. So I want to see that. Now that's going to be kind of an interesting lookup because it's not just like I need another filter that is sort of like an or. Like I don't want to do, now think of it as like an if statement in Python. You could say like if name is equal to Joel, you want to do this one thing. Or I want to say like if name is equal to Joel or name is equal to Aaron. And see in this case I want to filter down by if my name is Joel or my name is Aaron and then like the tweet is public. Like I need to do an or search here. And ors have always been kind of weird with Django. In fact, I'm not even sure if Django 2 got rid of these, but let's say Django 2.0 Q object. I wonder if they got rid of the Q object in Django 2.
Did you create a variable and do one query, add that to the variable, and then do another query and add it?
What do you mean?
Like, could you do just a variable called Queryset equals tweet.objects.filter? We just did. Do that.
And then filter it down again.
And then do another filter to add.
So the reason why, so I don't think I'm doing a very good job explaining this morning. The thing with when you chain a filter, when you say dot filter, dot filter, dot filter, which you absolutely can do, is that those are all inclusive. Those are saying and.
Well, I meant instead of not on the same line, but if you did a variable equals tweet.objects.filter, whatever.
Yeah.
That's putting those query results in that variable. Can you then
So if I
do
say
like
like X is there.
and then do another line, X plus equals tweet.objects.other filter.
So you want to do it like, okay, well, let's find out if this works. So I can say, so public would be true, and then the author, what is it? What's that?
I said, don't you just want all the ones that are true?
Well, not.
That would do.
So yeah, this is where like, well, first off, this isn't going to work. I can tell you. I don't believe you can plus equal query sets. I kind of want to see it work though. So let's just say public is equal to true. Let's go to postman and cannot resolve public into field private. Private is equal to false. See, because this would contradict itself. See, if I was able to add these onto each other, like these filters, it would only return me results that were mine that I've marked as public. You see how it did that? But I don't think the plus equal works anyway, so I kind of want to see that. Yeah. Can't plus equal query sets. So your head is in the right place though. So the right way to do that though is to do this, where you just add them onto each other, and that will only give, like I said, this will only give you results where I'm the author. Oh wait, no, I need to actually return X here. There you go. This will only give you results where I'm the author, where it was a public tweet. So what I want to do is I need to add it on as an OR. And ORs have never been easy in Python. They've always made it really difficult to do an OR search in Python. And so the way that you do an OR search in Python is with this thing called a Q object, which is a complex lookup. So this explains exactly what I was talking about right here, is that keyword argument queries and filter are and. So when we did this lookup with filter here, it was saying, find me where all the author users are me, and the privates are false, which in our case returns 0 results. So what we want to do is we want to find out where the author user is me, or the private is false and the author user is not me. So we want and to be elsewhere on the or. That's really weird to try to explain, but so this is where the Q object allows you to define those or lookups. And so here's an example of if you have like a complex lookup. So if you have a question starts with who or a question starts with what, the query would wind up looking like this, where question like who or a question like what. That's kind of what we want to do. Now let's see if they give us a good example here. Looks like they do. We're not going to exactly do this though. What we're going to do is we're going to do a filter, we're going to give it a Q object, and then we're going to do comma, and then we're going to do another Q object, because the comma will be anded together. So I could say we're question like who, and then it's an or these two. Well, no, I want to do the opposite of that, don't I? I do want to do the opposite of that, which is this one here. Anyways, I'll show you how we get there. So we're not going to have a second filter here, but we are going to have to import the Q object, which is from, okay, it's from models. So if I say from django.db.models, import capital Q, it always seems weird to me that all these years, Django still uses the Q object for OR lookups. I've never really felt that it was that intuitive. All right, and because we're going to do some complex lookups, I'm going to break this into multiple lines to try to make it a little bit more, or a little less crazy. All right, so author. So I want to make sure that I have the author of user. So I wrap that in a Q object. And that should still work. That should definitely still work. Yep, that's what I expected. And then I should be able to do a vertical bar here. That is shift backslash, by the way. A vertical bar. I'm going to do Q private is equal to false. Now, someone said this. I think John said this. Might have been, I'm going to say all three of you said it because I don't really know who said it. One of you said it to where if you searched up private false, it would double up the results. Well, this will not double up the results because it is in one query. So we could say, I want to find, so let's sit back and let's look at what this is doing here. This is saying I want to find all results where I'm the author of. Okay, so that's private true and private false, but I'm the author of them. Doesn't care. I could say or where private is equal to false. So that's going to get two groups of results and then merge them for me. So let's see if that worked. Now, an edge case here is what would this query return a tweet that I've created that's private of false? Let's think about that one. Would that query return a private of false that I've created?
Yeah, because you're the author.
Well, for two cases, right? Both of these would pass. And so that's like the super happy path of this query. It's like, oh, I found one that fit both cases. Even though it's an or, it's not going to exclude that one. So I'm going to go into my admin and we're going to test it out. So if this one is owned by Joel, which is my user, I'm going to mark it not as private. Let's go back to Postman, and it still shows up. So the Q object, in my opinion, is one of the weirdest things in Django. So we've discovered it right here. But unfortunately, because data can be sometimes complex, is that it's a necessary evil of Django is to use the Q object. So that's one of those ones like I'm sorry, but we have to kind of use the Q object when we have complex lookups. And I'm just going to clean this up by returning that instead of assigning it to X. But this satisfies both of these. And the vertical bar syntax, right there, that's magic. Just think of it as magic at this point. And in like 2 or 3 years or so, I think you'll come back and you'll say like, what is that vertical bar doing? And it might still seem like magic, but really it's an operator that's been overloaded between the two classes. You remember how we did that when we made it so you could say class plus another object, like object plus object, in was it currency converter? That was the hard mode of it, but we've done them where like you've plus equaled something to the inventory, but this is doing an OR between these two objects. Don't worry what that does though. The vertical bar is magic. What was your question, John?
So whether we're doing an and or an or whatever, we use those Q.
No, you only use the Q objects if you need to do an OR. If you want to do an AND, then you can just put everything right there. So for example, if this was an AND, don't type along with me right now, but if this was an AND, this lookup would look like this. I would do this. I would say author is equal to self.request.user. I would do a comma, and then I would say private is equal to false. Like if that was my AND lookup, like this would be perfectly fine. But Django will, all of the, like it said in the documentation, when you have keyword argument queries and filter, which is what these are, keyword arguments, it ANDs them together. But if you want to OR something, you OR them all together here.
So if you did the AND one, that would basically, you wouldn't see your own tweets marked private.
Right. 1, you wouldn't see your own private tweets, and 2, you wouldn't see any tweets anybody else made. So like this is absolutely the wrong query to use. But this is the right query to use. It's using the Q objects. It's because it ORs it together. It says, I want to see the ones that I've made. Doesn't matter if they're private or public. And then, or I want to see all the queries that are marked as private false, meaning I don't care who the author was. So we have these two sort of exclusive fields that I don't really want them to mess with. So in one case, I want to go get all the ones that I've created. I don't care if it's public or private. On the other case, I want to get all of the private ones and I want to merge them together. And that's how you do that with an OR. Whew. I dropped the Q object bomb on you. Y'all need to tell Robert that when he gets here tomorrow. He'll be like, what are y'all covering? You say, well, we covered the Q object yesterday, so we're all kind of out of sorts today. Because the Q object, the Q object destroys souls. It's like in the original Star Wars movie when they destroy Princess Leia's planet. She's just like, oh man, she's all bummed out about it.
It's a bummer.
It's a bummer, man. It's a bummer. the Big Lebowski watches Star Wars.
Yes.
I would watch that. What questions do you have? You've been asking very good questions so far, so keep them coming. I'm sure more will arrive. All right, so get query set. Before we head into break, get query set is how you filter down your response, and you can really filter. You can do whatever you want here. Like this is just a function. This is a method here. You can do any sort of computation. You can access the database for other things. You can say who my request user. Oh, we need to also filter down by user as well.
If you were to do get query set and just did tweet.objects.all like we did without get query set, it would work.
So like if you did get query set and tweet.objects.all,
it would work the same as not using get query set.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
So get query set is just kind of like a set.
Get query set allows you the opportunity to filter your query set down. Whereas just assigning your query set variable, you can't really do anything. You say query set is mostly just like, just give me all of them.
You can't filter outside of query set.
Well, you can if you're not dependent on anything from a request. So like you can say query set is equal to filter by public is equal to true, but that wouldn't have anything with the user going on with it.
So because we're using that self.request on user, we have to use the get query set.
There it is. Because we're using something from self right here, because self is right here. It's passed into this method. So we say self request user. If we didn't have anything with the user here, we could get away with having it just to be the query set variable.
Why can't you access self from within the class? I mean, we could do that before.
Because, well, no, you actually can't. You can't do query set is equal to this right here, because there is no self variable defined here.
Well, I thought when we were doing classes before, you could have name and then reference. No.
You could set class variables outside of here, but if you ever want to refer to self, which is the actual instance of it, you have to put that within a method. Okay, so before we hit break, I do also want to add in one more thing here. I only want to return the public tweets for a non-logged in user. Now this is kind of a cool little trick, and you guys are gonna. This get query set is probably going to account for a lot of your final project stuff, because your final projects are gonna have some sort of complexity that has, like, you need to filter it down by public, something like that. Chances are you're gonna want to put functionality like this into your final project, no matter what it is. So keep this block of code handy. Thank Kevin for telling me to put it online for all of you in case you weren't following along or if you did something wrong. But I also want to filter it down by the logged in user. So I want to come out into Postman, and I want to say, if I'm not logged in, well, first off, if I'm not logged in, what do you think is going to happen here? It's not going to show anything? Does anybody want to take the bait for the, just going to show an error? Womp womp. There's an error. So we introduced this new bug unknowingly. That's web development for you, by the way. Like, you will introduce so many bugs unknowingly because you were coding over here, you were having a really good time, you were partying, and then all of a sudden you decided to try if that old functionality still worked, and it doesn't anymore. And you have no idea why it broke. And also, it's probably going to be way harder because it's been maybe a day or two since you've tested that old functionality and you don't know where it broke. So fortunately, we know where this broke. This broke because of the next thing I want to tell you is that we want to guard against this fact that somebody's not logged in. And this is kind of a cool little trick. So we want to look at our request and see if there is a user. So if I say if self.request.user, there will always be a user there. But if that user is not logged in, they will not have an ID, a .id attribute. If they are logged in, they will have an ID attribute. So I'm going to say if self-request user ID is double equal to none. So this is the guard right here. This is the rail that I've put in that says if you're not logged in, we want to return you a different set of results. And that set of results is I want to return tweet.objects.filter, and this one's a real easy one. Just return me the results where private is equal to false. I don't care who the user is. I don't care any of that. Just give me the one where the user is private is equal to false.
What if we didn't want to show anything?
If you don't want to show anything to a user that's not logged in, you can just return an empty list. Private is equal to false. I think that should work. So if I'm not logged in, there we go. I see only the public tweets, no matter who. So this was user 1 and user 2. I turn on the authorization header. Now I see user 1 one's public tweet and also user two's private tweet. So this code right here winds up being very important in Git query set. This is sort of like the Rosetta Stone for a lot of cool features in apps right now. All right, so that allows us to filter down exactly how we want it to.
Could you also do and this isn't necessarily relevant to what we're doing, but for other things, if you wanted to check and see if they were an admin user and let them see everything, you could do like a
Okay.
self-request.users.name is admin, or
Mm-hmm.
no, we have to.
No, you could put another guard in here. You could say if self.request.user, I think it's is super user. You can just have that return tweet.objects.all. So I have my admin user. I think it's is super user. So my Joel user doesn't see everything, but if I was to log in, so if I say auth/token/create post over my username as admin now. So now when I do a get to /tweets, I should see everything. There we go. I see everybody's, well, no, that's not right. Okay. No, that's right. Yeah, because admin only has one. So let's go into our Django admin. Let's create a tweet that is tied to admin. That's private. But I can tell you right now that that's right because I can. So if I'm admin, now I can see this user's private tweet. So that actually works. I can tell that it works right there.
Can you go back to your code for a second?
Uh-huh. Did you all get noodles yesterday? Why not? Skipped it, huh? You guys know Maddie loves Mekong too, right?
She had to leave for
She had to leave. That's a bummer. It's a bummer, man. It's the new thing for the class. Okay, so let's go ahead and break there so that we can refill coffee. Shoot, I still have like 2 hours before I can take more medicine. Let's break there. When we come back, let's start talking about likes or follows. They're both pretty complex things. Let's see, so neither of which will be important for this weekend's homework. There's no aspect of liking or following something. So let's just talk about, I think we'll talk about liking something. So if you have a tweet, you can like something as a logged in user. Cool. All right, let's come back.